Hi guys, Dave here, back in the shed, as you can see. Today, December the 24th, 2020, what a year it's been. But everything's done, we're all prepared for Christmas, so I've been allowed to come up to the shed to play. So today, I'm going to be tackling part 2 of the air rifle restoration project. In the meantime, since August, when I did the strip down video, I've done quite a lot of preparation work on the various components. Cleaning down, removing the old surface treatments, preparing the various components ready for the new surface treatments. That's the bluing process. I've done a practice go on the cocking lever, which has come out quite well. I'm really pleased with that. I've replaced the seal on the piston and done a lot of preparation work on the various components. There was a lot of bumps and dinks and dents, none of which on their own were terrible, but none of which would contribute to being a really good air rifle. So we've cleaned all of those up and I'll take you through that. We'll have a look now. I'll show you the various components, what I've done, how I've prepped them, how I've refurbished them, and we'll get stuck in. Right, so here's all the main parts. I've cleaned the main body of the gun and the barrel, removed as much of the pitting as I can, which is quite a laborious task. I started with a fine diamond file and with it in the vise just gently working away to get the worst of the pitting off, then moving down to some P80 Abranet, which removed the worst of the scratches that the diamond file had created, and finally moving down to 1000 grit wet and dry with a little bit of brake cleaner rather than water, because obviously water would create rust, which we're trying to avoid. So I use a bit of brake cleaner, which just helps to keep it fluid, lubricate the movement, and it comes up to quite a reasonable finish on the surface. It's not perfect, but then it's not a great world-beating gun, so it's not worth going to the nth degree with it. One of the things I did notice was that the barrel and the cylinder were not in line. The whole gun was bent right there, right in the breech block, just at the start of the barrel. I'll try and cut in a picture from the first video that will show you what I mean. But basically, if we put a straight edge on there, like so, see if I can show you that on the camera. If we put a straight edge on there like so, then the gap between the straight edge and the barrel is now even. This is obviously a short straight edge. I've got a 600mm one that I used, and if we progress that down, the gap from the straight edge to the cylinder is even. So how did I straighten it? I used a big 35-ton hydraulic press. I supported it there and there and applied the press pressure to where it was bent. I'll cut in a photograph to show you what I mean. So that's now straightened and it's all in line. I've patched up that weld there, but it didn't take very well. It's very poor quality steel, I'm afraid, so it hasn't taken terribly well, but it's reinforced it, it's strengthened it from what it was. Down inside the cylinder, the surface was quite badly pitted and scored. There is still quite a nasty score mark, if I can point that out to you. There. So I've dressed that up as best I can using a combination of a wooden stick with some abranet wrapped around the end of it in the end of a drill, and some emery tape on the end of a stick, and cleaned that all up and washed it all out. That score was caused by a dink in the back end of the piston. So as it's been cocked, and that just rubs against the inside of the barrel with whatever lubrication is in there, that horrible thick gungy grease. But any dinks or little burrs on the end would gradually over time, as that's moved backwards and forwards in the piston, in the cylinder, would cause scores and scratches. So I've cleaned those out as best I can. You may remember from video 1, I looked at this slot where the cocking lever runs. That runs in there, pushes the piston back, and then as you bring the cocking lever back up, the piston stays back, that moves forward. And that wasn't straight. That had been cut very poorly. There was a step there which wasn't terrible, but it could cause that to just stick momentarily when you pull the trigger. So I've dressed that back with a little grinder in a Dremel type tool. So I've straightened that up, cleaned that up, so that should no longer cause any problems. I fitted a new leather piston. I did search, but I couldn't find anything better than the leather piston, so I've put a new leather piston seal on it. Not a piston, it's a piston seal. And that came with a little package of red grease to lubricate it when I put it all back together. I've also bought a new loading tap. If I can get that open. Yep. So I've got a new loading tap to replace the old one. There was nothing terribly wrong with the old one, but I thought for what little it cost, we'd have a new one fitted. And that'll be that. Pop that back in there till we want it. And I bought new springs. Now the old springs, the inner spring is all bent and odd and worn where it's been rubbing because it's bent. So on that alone I opted to buy new springs. They appear to be about the same length, give or take a couple of millimeters. That internal spring, the wire diameter, is slightly bigger, so that's possibly a little bit stronger. The outer spring, interestingly, the old one was a square profile, the new one is a round wire profile. So we shall have to see how that behaves and performs, but there we go, new springs, old springs. This is the cocking lever that I've already had a go at bluing. Unfortunately it's a little damp out here in the shed at the moment, and I've got a little bit of light surface rust appearing at the ends of it. Appears to rub off with my fingers, so might not be too bad, but I think I'll flat it down with the wet and dry again and redo it. I only did it as a test piece to see how well it would work, how easy it was, and it is pretty simple. So there we have it. That's where I'm at. So the next stage is to apply the bluing to the main body of the gun. Now the most important part of that is that it must be absolutely spotless and grease free, which is why I'm wearing gloves. But I will give it another wipe down with some brake and clutch cleaner to remove any surface rust or grease. One of the few parts I haven't put a lot of effort into as yet is this section of the cocking mechanism. This is the actual lever that pushes the piston back. This is the connecting rod that connects it to the cocking lever itself, and that's got a bit of a burr on it there, which is probably from the screw. If you remember when I stripped it down, the pair of screws that go in either side of the stock at the front, one of them was the wrong type of screw, and I think it was on this side, and it's worn a groove into the side of that rod, which has got quite a burr on it. So I'm just going to, with the diamond file, I'm just going to flap that down just to take the burr off it. And it's obviously something when I reassemble it, all that I shall pay attention to, that that screw itself isn't too long and rubbing against this. All of the steel components of this gun appear to be made from some quite hard steel. An ordinary file won't touch it, it just skims over and doesn't do anything. That's why one of the reasons I've switched to using the diamond file. The other is that it's very fine and leaves a good surface. This side isn't too bad, but there is a little ding there. I doubt if you can see that on the camera. Let's see if I can zoom into it. Just a little ding there. So I shall see what I can do to clean that up. It doesn't affect, none of this on this part affects how the piston travels in the barrel, but while I'm at this point, I might as well fix these little issues. No point in leaving them. You can hear how rough that surface is when the file hits it. You can hear it getting all scratchy and horrible. And there we go, that should do that. A little bit of pitting on there, we'll just see if we can just clean that up a little bit. There we go, that's not bad. Now there's a little bit of roughness on the underside, I'll just clean that up a little bit. So that's that. That's it. It's pretty much the basic prep done. Give that a clean up, give that a clean down, and we'll try the bluing process again. Right, so I've given that a quick clean up with the wet and dry. That just needs wiping down with some brake cleaner to remove the last bits and any grease. I've got a gun service stand here which I can use to put the parts on while I apply the blue to them. So we'll give that cocking lever a wipe down. This is just brake and clutch cleaner. Get it from any motor factors. You can get it in spray tins. I use quite a lot of it, so I buy the gallon. Sorry, 5 litres. We're metric, aren't we? But it's a great degreaser. You do have to be careful with it because, as with most degreasers, it is flammable. So don't do it near any naked flames. But basically just give that a wipe down. And you can see there the muck that's come off it. That looked reasonably clean. So I'm going to get a cleaner piece of the towel and wipe it down again. And you're possibly wondering why I've got a cable tie through the end of it. It's so that once I've got it blued, I can pick it up, because the final process of the bluing is to rinse it with warm, clean water. So I need to be able to pick that up and take it to the kitchen sink and run it under some warm water, which washes off the residual bluing compound and cures the surface, hopefully, to a proper finish. So there we go. Now to apply the blue, I bought a bag load of these little beauties. These are like a cotton bud, I suppose you could call it, but they're on a metal shaft. They're what the windscreen fitters use to apply the primer around the windscreen frame before they bond the windscreen in these days. So I bought a bag load of those. They were cheap, and this is the blue compound, Phillips gun blue. It's paste. I have seen people who've been going to use this on YouTube thinking that it's gone off because it's semi-solid, but that is what it should be. It is a paste. So all I'm going to do is just dab the pad onto it, and just wipe that gently onto the surface like so, making sure I get it into all of the little crooks and crannies, or nooks and crannies even. And as you can see, it instantly changes colour. Not quite sure why they call it bluing when it turns it black, other than the treatment itself is blue before you start. I assume it's some kind of acid etch. Never really looked into what the actual chemical formulation of bluing compounds is. I dare say the various different brands differ slightly, but I'm sure they're all largely based on the same formula. I'm guessing that it's some kind of mild acid that etches into the surface. If anybody knows the real answer, feel free to mention it in the comments down below. That looks quite good. So I'm just going to pop to the kitchen sink and give that a rinse off. And there we go. That's that done. I'll give that a wipe off with some clean blue towel and see what it looks like. It's also worth mentioning that if anybody knows how this process should be done and I'm doing it wrong, please let me know. Mention it in the comments down below. This is the first time for me. I'm only going by what I've been able to find on YouTube and the internet in general. Unfortunately, buying this stuff, it doesn't come with much in the way of instructions other than clean and degrease the area to be blued with Phillips gun degreaser to remove all oil and grease. Apply the blue with a soft cloth and rub in all directions. Wash the area with water to remove excess gel. Oil well with Phillips shotgun oil. Wash hands thoroughly afterwards. Yes, it is acid based. Contains nitric and selenious acids. Poisonous and corrosive. Avoid contact with eyes. Yep, so that's that. Seems to do the job pretty well. I might have to see if I can acquire some shotgun oil to finish the job. But as today is Christmas Eve, that's not going to happen in the next 10 days or so. So that's the cocking lever. It does look like it could do with another coat of it, another treatment. We'll repeat the process with the barrel. I'll give that a clean down. Be back in a minute. Right, so that's all cleaned and degreased. Open the pot up. I've got a new pad. I've got plenty of them, so there's no point in trying to use the same one time and time again. So I'll load that up with the gel. And we'll start at this end. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but that instantly turns black. Which is very reassuring. I'm just not sure whether I should leave it to stand for 5 minutes or so before I rinse it off, or whether doing it and rinsing it straight away is the correct way. I really don't know. But we'll see how we go. Right, that's all that done. I'll go and give that a dunk and a rinse off, and I'll be back in a few minutes and we'll have a look what it looks like. Right, that's those done. I realised that I have got some gun oil. Came in the Gammo service kit. Whether that's shotgun oil I don't know, air gun oil. But I've given the two components that we've blued a wipe over with that oil. And I have to say, I think they've come up pretty well. I'll do a scan along it and see what you think. Hopefully the application of the oil will prevent them rusting again. But, yeah, overall I think the main body and the barrel would probably benefit from another treatment of the bluing. So it might be a question of degreasing it once more and just giving it another application and see if that improves the finish on it. But overall I'm quite pleased with that. I think it will probably be worth giving the piston the bluing treatment. It isn't going to help it work, it isn't going to make it work any better, but I think it would look nice. So if it ever gets stripped down again, that would look the part. I've also got the cocking levers to do, and then we can reassemble all of that. And then on the next one, after that, I should be looking at repairing, preparing, tidying up and recutting the grooves in the stock. So I think that'll do for this one. In the meantime, I shall blue this and the piston, and when I see you again, or when you see me again even, it should be for the reassembly of this and then work on the stock. Have a safe and Merry Christmas everybody. Thanks for watching.